During my junior year in high school in Northern California, she played guitar. We graduated from Stevie's high school. Why not ask Stevie to join the band? At that time, Stevie and I were not dating. Lindsey Buckingham was not destined for fame. Traditional spotlights weren't for him. No charisma, superstar persona, or flair. A whole band had to change for him. One strum from him may change Fleetwood Mac forever. Buckingham, a garage-talk guitarist, became the creative soul of one of the greatest rock bands. He took Fleetwood Mac from its underground blues rock roots to the golden age of Go Your Own Way, Tusk, Big Love, and Never Going Back Again. While his music flourished, his personal life was plagued by breakups, tensions, and unavoidable confrontations, especially with Stevie Nicks. They were lovers, bandmates, rivals, soulmates, and foes in an almost 50-year whirlwind. Every album was a wound, every song a piece of his soul, and every reunion an additional painful chapter. Lindsey Buckingham left Fleetwood Mac at 75. One last time, he was fired silently and bitterly. His tale has never finished because his intense, honest, and uncompromising music still rings, a monument to all that was lost and all that no one could ever replace, early life. In Palo Alto, California, Lindsey Buckingham was born October 3, 1949. A peaceful northern neighborhood of Silicon Valley, the future global technology hub. It was a normal middle-class neighborhood in the 1950s, and the Buckingham family was no exception. Morris Buckingham, his father, was a San Jose State University football standout and food industry tycoon. Mother Rafita was calm and capable, keeping the household in order. Lindsey was the youngest of 3 brothers. His middle brother, Greg Buckingham, earned a silver medal in swimming at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. The family valued athletics, but Lindsey didn't fit in. He didn't swim, play football, or win medals. Instead, he kept to himself, obsessed with vinyl and radio music. His first guitar was a Mickey Mouse toy. He didn't play with it, which was shocking. He took it seriously. Without formal instruction, he practiced for hours. Never learned music reading. He played intuitively and emotionally. Lindsey's youth didn't feature many artist tragedies. However, his peaceful stability and introversion drove him into his own world. A world where guitar strings were his main form of communication. He idolized the Kingston Trio and developed a unique finger-picking style that blended tradition with own flair in his teens. He met Stevie Nicks then. They attended the same high school but barely knew each other until he played guitar at a small party and she sang along. A brief moment that changed their lives forever. Nobody could have anticipated that the quiet youngster from a sports-loving family who never studied music would become one of rock's most inventive guitarists. The heart of one of music's most deep, powerful, and haunting artistic relationships. Early career Lindsey Buckingham's music started without platinum records or stardom. His bass playing for Fritz in the late 1960s began at local Bay Area settings. Buckingham was a timid young man who practiced and performed in silence. Fritz's decision to hire Stevie Nicks as lead vocalist was a turning point. They fell in love slowly through shared performances, late-night trips home, and songs on stage. Not simply love. It was rare creative concord. While Fritz opened for Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Santana, they envisioned a grander ambition, an own musical dream. After Fritz disbanded in 1971, Buckingham and Nicks went to LA. One goal, making an album, no contracts or money. They spent their savings on Sound City Studios recordings. The 1973 album Buckingham Nicks was raw, dramatic, and promising. The music business disagreed. The album sold badly due to low radio and marketing. Their request failed. Rock bottom. Nicks waitressed, cleaned houses, and wondered if they were chasing an unrealistic goal while Buckingham worked session labor. Their relationship became amorous but tense. No money, no career, and a rundown flat created tension. They kept going because they believed in music despite the uncertainty. Then fate literally called. While searching for a replacement guitarist at Sound City, Fleetwood Mac drummer and co-founder Mick Fleetwood heard Buckingham's guitar. Immediately impressed, he encouraged Buckingham to join the band. Lindsey demanded one thing. If he joined, Stevie had to. No Stevie. Know him. This unexpected request became one of Fleetwood Mac's best moves. At the end of 1974, the pair joined Buckingham, marking the start of a new period in which Buckingham no longer played to anonymous bar crowds but at the top of worldwide rock. From the shattering failure of Buckingham Nicks to the unfathomable opportunity with Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey Buckingham's early career was a succession of harsh falls, but each fall drove him closer to greatness. Success, breakup, reunion. Lindsey Buckingham joined Fleetwood Mac with a guitar, a remarkable musical instinct, revolutionary creative energy, and Stevie Nicks, whom he insisted on taking along. If she's not in, I'm not in, he said. In a rare moment where chance met intuition, Mick Fleetwood accepted them both. No one in the studio that day could have predicted that this decision would forever change the fate of Fleetwood Mac and rock history itself. When the Fleetwood Mac album was released in 1975, the British-rooted band already had a 7-year history, but it was still struggling under the shadow of traditional blues rock. With Monday Morning, a short, fast-paced track with sharp melodies, Buckingham brought something new to the band. Modern pop rhythms, American spirit, and the decisiveness of a new generation. Alongside Nick's Rhiannon and Christine McVie's Say You Love Me, the album quickly became a sensation. Fleetwood Mac went from a band people used to know to international superstars. What few realized was that behind the scenes, Buckingham quietly took the reins of the production process. From harmonies, melody structures to instrumentation, he wasn't just a new member, he was the architect of the band's reinvention. The success of Fleetwood Mac created massive pressure for the next record, but no one imagined Rumours, 1977, would be both a masterpiece and a nightmare. During its recording, every relationship within the band fell apart. Christine and John McVie divorced but still played bass and keyboards together. Stevie and Lindsey had just broken up but faced each other in the studio every night. Mick Fleetwood separated from his wife. The band was emotionally shattered, yet bound together by contracts and public expectations. In that chaos, Lindsey didn't collapse, he directed it. Go Your Own Way wasn't just the opening track, it was a bombshell. Angry, fierce, razor-sharp. He poured all his frustration at Stevie Nicks into every lyric. Lovin' You Isn't the Right Thing to Do began a song that was part breakup letter, part indictment, with his Stratocaster slashing through the relationship one note at a time. Stevie responded with Dreams, soft, sorrowful, a quiet sigh saying goodbye. While the world remembers Rumours for its hits, Buckingham remembers it for its toll. We turned pain into art, he later said, and it exhausted us. But the results were undeniable. Over 40 million copies sold, Album of the Year at the Grammys, and a permanent place in pop history. After Rumours, Warner Brothers wanted more of the same, but Buckingham wanted to break the mold. He built Tusk, 1979, as a sonic laboratory, infused with the spirit of punk, new wave, and the eccentricities he admired in Talking Heads and other experimental bands of the era. He rejected the expensive studio, opting instead to build a home studio. He recorded guitar parts layer by painstaking layer, creating hundreds of sound textures. The title track, Tusk, had no chorus, thunderous drums, and eerie howls. For the label, it was a shock. For Stevie and Christine, it felt like exclusion. But to critics, Tusk was a bold manifesto, an avant-garde work ahead of its time. It didn't sell like Rumours, but it left a lasting mark on indie, alternative, and even 21st century music. By 1982, Mirage was an attempt to regain balance. Hold Me became a hit, but Lindsey began pulling back from his leadership role. He was weary of the internal tension, the substance abuse, and the emotional numbness among bandmates. By the time Tango in the Night was released in 1987, Fleetwood Mac had become almost entirely his creation, from the production, arrangements, to its musical direction. Big Love, his fiery comeback track, was a solo piece layered with double-tracked vocals and nearly unplayable guitar work. But he refused to tour, not out of arrogance, but because he couldn't face another cycle of writing, fighting, performing, and emotional breakdown. At a meeting at Christine McVie's house, Stevie Nicks physically lashed out, shoving him in an eruption of 10 years of unspoken resentment. And Lindsey left the band, not in glory, but in anger and isolation. In 1997, Fleetwood Mac reunited its classic lineup for the live album The Dance. Lindsey returned in top form, delivering an acoustic version of Big Love that brought the crowd to its feet. The album sold well, the tour was a success, but the cracks remained. In every reunion after 2003, 2009, 2013, the relationship between Lindsey and Stevie was always fragile. Then in 2018, as the band prepared for another tour, Stevie Nicks gave an ultimatum. It's either me or Lindsey. Fleetwood Mac chose her. Lindsey, the man who once insisted she be included in the band 43 years earlier, was fired. No apology, no meeting, no warning. Solo career. When Lindsey Buckingham left Fleetwood Mac for the first time in 1987, many thought he would fade from the music scene, a star extinguished by internal conflict. But Buckingham didn't disappear. He simply needed space, not to rest, but to create the first time, without being interrupted by other voices. No Stevie, no Mick, no Christine, just him and the quiet voice that had been echoing inside his head for years. In fact, his solo journey began even earlier. In 1981, while Fleetwood Mac was still riding high from Tusk, Buckingham quietly released his first solo album, Law and Order. The track Trouble unexpectedly became a hit, breaking into the Billboard Top 10. But the album wasn't designed to please the masses. It was quirky, experimental, and intentionally offbeat. Critics quickly realized Buckingham wasn't going solo to be loved. He did it because he had ideas Fleetwood Mac couldn't contain. 3 years later, he released Go Insane, 1984, an album soaked in electronic textures and emotional unrest. With pounding synths, fragmented rhythms, and lyrics that felt written in a haze of confusion, it reflected a dark chapter. He had just ended a long-term relationship with Carol and Harris and was still reeling from his painful history with Stevie Nicks and the internal pressures within the band. Go Insane felt like emotional self-surgery, and he was both the patient and the surgeon. It took him 5 years to create Out of the Cradle, 1992, which many critics hailed as his most perfect recording. It was Buckingham in refined form, clear in structure, elegant in melody, yet still razor-sharp. From Countdown to Soul Drifter, each song read like the journal entries of an artist who had weathered storms and now watched the world with a calmer, but no less piercing gaze. In the 2000s, Buckingham stepped away from major labels. He built a home studio and began producing everything himself. Under the Skin, 2006, was stripped bare, virtually no drums, no bass, just acoustic guitar and a raspy voice. It sounded like a handwritten letter sent with no recipient. Gift of Screws, 2008, on the other hand, was loud, rocking, and featured Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, like a temporary half-reunion of Fleetwood Mac. But no album embodied his uncompromising independence like Seeds We Sow, 2011, where he was songwriter, technician, producer, label, and even delivery man for his own work. No label, no promotion, no radio play. And yet it became one of his most critically acclaimed releases of the decade. Then, just when it seemed he would quietly drift into his later years, Buckingham surprised everyone again. In 2019, he underwent emergency open-heart surgery, nearly lost his voice and nearly died, but he didn't vanish. In 2021, he returned with an album simply titled Lindsey Buckingham. No explanation, no disguise. The song On the Wrong Side from that album plays like a bitter reflection. I picked the wrong side in battles of my own, but at least I lived true. The album wasn't a commercial success, but for those who had followed him for over 4 decades, it was a farewell that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Lindsey Buckingham's solo career was never about grand stages. It was about closed rooms, dim lights, a place where one man could layer hundreds of guitar tracks just to create a detail no one would notice except him. But it's that very obsession, that isolation, that unwavering faith in artistry that makes Lindsey Buckingham one of the most resilient, independent, and distinctive artists rock music has ever produced. No Fleetwood Mac, no Stevie Nicks, just the freedom to make music his way. Personal life behind every creative genius, there is often a lonely man. For Lindsey Buckingham, that's not a poetic cliché. It's a truth that has stretched across half a century. Didn't live to be understood. He lived so that music could understand him. And for those who entered his life, loved him, worked with him, left him, they all had to face one reality. Lindsey Buckingham might feel close on stage, but in real life, he remained distant. The first person to share his artistic journey was also the one who hurt him the most, Stevie Nicks. They met when they were young, with nothing but a guitar and some demo tapes no one had heard. They loved each other with a kind of love born of artistic passion and the shared desire to escape ordinary lives. They lived in poverty, recording Buckingham Nicks only when they had enough money to rent the studio by the hour. And they entered Fleetwood Mac together as both romantic and artistic partners. But it was Fleetwood Mac that eventually tore them apart. When success came too fast, when creativity was twisted by resentment and power struggles, when nightly tours forced them to face each other with nothing left to say, the love cracked. Go Your Own Way and Dreams weren't just hit songs. They were confessions, one from the voice of rage, the other from the one left behind. They never truly made peace, but they never fully separated either. Despite the pain, they kept singing together. Despite the bitterness, they remained the couple everyone mentioned when speaking of Fleetwood Mac. It was a relationship without a name, only scars, that lasted until the very end of the band. After Stevie, Buckingham entered a long-term relationship with Carol and Harris, a woman who worked in audio engineering. That relationship left lasting marks, documented in Harris's memoir Storms. which accused Buckingham of control and emotional abuse. He never responded publicly, but the songs on Go Insane, released during their time together, revealed a psychological state that was unstable, haunted, and deeply isolated. Gone was the romanticism. What remained were jagged riffs, fragmented song structures, and lyrics that sounded like a voice echoing from the depths of someone losing control. Right or wrong, it was clear that Lindsey Buckingham at the time wasn't easy to be with, let alone to love. It wasn't until the year 2000, well into his 50s, that he chose to marry. His wife, Kristen Messner, wasn't a celebrity nor part of the music industry. She was a photographer who had once taken portraits of him and gradually became a confidant. They had 3 children together. Over the next 2 decades, Buckingham lived relatively quietly. His public appearances with his family were rare, just a few scattered events, a handful of photos. But in his songs, the change was noticeable. His music no longer roared like Tusk, nor ached like Out of the Cradle. It became slower, quieter, and for the first time, gentler. But even that gentleness wasn't lasting. In 2021, Kristen filed for divorce. Just after he released his final solo album, Lindsey Buckingham. No one knew the reason. There was no scandal, no public drama, just a haunting silence, true to the way he had always dealt with endings. Sometime later, they withdrew the divorce papers and reconciled. In a rare interview, when asked why he still believed in love after so many failures, Buckingham replied simply, "Yet fate wasn't done." In 2019, he underwent emergency open-heart surgery, a procedure so risky he almost died. He lost his voice temporarily and couldn't sing. For someone who had used music as a way to survive, losing his voice felt like having his soul taken away. But he didn't complain. He didn't post about it. He didn't ask for sympathy. He recovered, quietly, and returned to the studio, releasing a new album in 2021 as if nothing had happened. Only the keenest listeners could detect it. In his guitar tone, there was a slight tremble. No more urgency, no more defiance. Just a man playing music because he no longer knew how to live without it. For over 50 years, Lindsey Buckingham has lived through it all. A first love full of dreams, a relationship filled with shadows, a late-in-life marriage, separations, reunions, illness, and an ever-present loneliness. He has never led a loud personal life, never been the center of Hollywood gossip, but it's this silence, this refusal to live like an A-list star that makes him such a layered, enigmatic figure. He was never a perfect man, but it's the wounds, the silences, the missteps, and the fact that he kept moving forward, even alone, that shaped the true Lindsey Buckingham, an artist who dared to love, dared to hurt, and never stopped writing the next chapter with music. Legacy and influence. Lindsey Buckingham was never the kind of guitarist who flaunted technical prowess. He didn't rely on extended solos, flashy effects, or heavy distortion to stand out. But with just one strum, those rapid, irregular finger-picking patterns, both delicate and razor-sharp, you knew it was Buckingham. From Never Going Back Again to the acoustic version of Big Love, he crafted a guitar style so distinct it has been described as a mix of banjo and flamenco played barehanded on steel strings. Many indie and alternative artists of later generations, from Ben Gibbard of Death Cab for Cutie to St. Vincent to bands like Local Natives and Fleet Foxes, show clear influence from his restrained technique and offbeat harmonies. But Buckingham wasn't just a guitarist. He was a masterful producer, the driving force behind key Fleetwood Mac albums like Tusk, Mirage, and Tango in the Night, as well as all of his solo records. Remarkably, he often did nearly everything himself, playing all the instruments, recording, arranging, mixing, long before the age of digital software. It wasn't just perfectionism. It was a relentless form of artistic control, so intense that collaborators have said, working with Lindsey is like living with an instrument. You're not allowed to fall out of tune. And yet, that very intensity helped shape one of the greatest milestones in music history. Rumours, the 5th best-selling album of all time, with over 40 million copies sold. Everything Fleetwood Mac became after 1975, their sound, structure, and production style, bears Buckingham's fingerprints. Some even argue that without him, the band would have remained a mediocre British blues group, and without the tension between him and Stevie Nicks, there would be no Go Your Own Way, Dreams, The Chain, Secondhand News, or Big Love, songs that pulse not just with melody, but with blood, sweat, and the emotional wreckage of their creators. Buckingham's impact was never about awards. It was about the number of people who listened and learned. In a music industry where most young artists chase trends or market share, Buckingham went the other way. Even in recent years, in his 70s, he continued releasing independent albums, self-recorded, self-produced, no major tours, no massive publicity. But with every song, he held fast to his founding principle. No concessions to ease, no writing to please, no turning art into product. Buckingham didn't invent a genre, but he quietly influenced hundreds of musicians, those who play by instinct, embrace dissonance, value individuality, and refuse to compromise with the machine. He never became a pop culture icon like Stevie Nicks, but he was the technical voice behind the perfect takes, the unseen hand behind much of Fleetwood Mac's legacy. And as he once said, "I don't want to be remembered as a star. I just want people when they hear the music to think, someone really lived to make this." In an increasingly noisy world, Lindsey Buckingham's legacy, quiet, eccentric, and deep, is the kind that endures. No need for spotlights, no need for symbols, just one strum, and you remember he was here. Present life. At 75, Lindsey Buckingham doesn't live in nostalgia. He continues to write new chapters in a musical journey already rich with drama and depth. After undergoing emergency heart surgery in 2019 and quietly recovering in solitude, Buckingham returned to the spotlight with a creative energy rarely seen in artists who have spent nearly half a century performing. 2024 marked a significant milestone. He released the box set 20th Century Lindsey, featuring his first 3 solo albums: Law and Order, 1981, Go Insane, 1984, and Out of the Cradle, 1992, all remastered from the original tapes and accompanied by a bonus disc of rare recordings and remixes. It wasn't just a gift to loyal fans, it was a way for Buckingham to reflect on his own path, independent, bold, and never compromising. But he didn't stop there. In early 2025, he surprised everyone by reuniting with Mick Fleetwood in the studio, for the first time since being fired from Fleetwood Mac in 2018. Under the production of Carl Falk, Buckingham contributed guitar and vocals to Mick's new solo album, hinting at a reconciliation, at least musically, between two of the band's pillars. While a full Fleetwood Mac reunion now seems unlikely, for many fans, hearing them play together again is already something of a miracle. Also in 2025, Buckingham launched a solo tour across North America beginning in April. On stage, he blended solo hits like Trouble, Go Insane, and Holiday Road with Fleetwood Mac classics such as Big Love, Never Going Back Again, and Tusk. With silver hair, a slender frame, and world-weary eyes, his fingers still danced across the strings with haunting precision, as if time itself had never touched them. Beyond performing, Buckingham is also preparing to release a new solo album in spring 2026, timed with the premiere of a Fleetwood Mac documentary produced by Apple. The album is expected to serve as a deeply personal statement after love, breakups, glory, betrayal, and ultimately resilience. Never one to shy away from collaboration with younger artists. He also contributed to the deluxe edition of Ask That God by Empire of the Sun, appearing on the track Somebody's Son. Even at 75, Buckingham proves he isn't just a relic of rock's past. He remains a vivid presence in its present. For Lindsey Buckingham, life today isn't about looking back. It's about continuing to build a legacy. Every performance, every recording, every bridge rebuilt is his way of saying he's still here, still creating, still fully himself, without regret and without retreat. Lindsey Buckingham's story isn't just the journey of a gifted musician. It's the tragedy of creativity, where talent, love, and loneliness constantly tear at each other. He wrote timeless music in the midst of personal collapse, both the architect of a generation's sound and the outsider in the very band he helped build. If you believe that Lindsey Buckingham, with all his scars and legacy, deserves to be remembered, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next stories. Which Lindsey song haunts you the most? Go Your Own Way or Never Going Back Again? Share your thoughts in the comments, because music is also how we tell the stories of our own lives. See you in the next video.